Hello and welcome to another episode of Agency Automators. As you might be able to tell, I'm kind of losing my shit because we have Ben Collins, one of our demigods of automation, here with us today. And I want to switch the view so everybody can see all three of us at the same time. I'm joined today by my co-host, Jordan Chu. Jordan, what's up?
Hey,
Collins.
super excited.
I know, I'm like talking over you because I'm so pumped. Ben, hello. Thank you. My persistence has finally paid off. I get you in a hangout after a year of cyber stalking you on Twitter. So for those that don't know you, Ben, can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got started with automation, how you kind of drifted into this line of work? Because you've got a really great life story.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you both very much for inviting me on the show. I've known you for now a couple of years now, and I know you were keen over a year ago. Played hard to get, but thanks for persisting. I'm glad I'm here today. So, yeah, I mean, I guess if I go back a while, I studied math at college. So I always had like that technical bent. Honestly, I thought I really wanted to be a scientist when I grew up, or a mathematician even. But really, you need a brain the size of a galaxy to be any good at that job. So that is not me. I decided to actually go into finance after college, which is it wasn't my calling, but it paid the bills. It was it's a job that a lot of mathematicians and or numbers people from college drift into. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to be down in London where my mates were, where my brother was, headed down there. And it was sort of fortunate in a way I chose that because that led me into the world of Excel, which started me off on this whole journey. And I don't know what else I might have done, but looking back, all those painful weekends and long nights in the office, stuck in Excel, cursing it, actually led me to where I am essentially today. And it's funny though, I remember one particular day, I don't remember the date, but I can clearly picture myself sitting at my desk. I had a cool boss, straight Australian guy called Dom. He came over and he asked me I had these two spreadsheets in Excel. He said, bring the data across from one table into the other. Yeah, that's automation, right? Just, thousands of rows. You're not going to do it manually. And I was thinking, how do you do that? I don't know how you do that. And he sort of looked at me like with this funny look, like, who hired this idiot? And he said, right, let me give you 5 minutes, a quick lesson on the VLOOKUP. And that was really the first, spreadsheet thing I learned. I'd done some coding at college with some of the math specific language stuff for some project work and enjoyed it, but never sort of kept up with it or anything. So I wasn't particularly technical at this point in time. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he sat me down and showed me how to do this VLOOKUP thing. And it was really eye-opening because I sort of realized that Excel isn't just somewhere you just dump numbers and read through them and do these like sort of sums and counts and things. There's actually a lot more to it. And when I then looked around the office, I suddenly realized that, there were people who knew how to use this software really, really well. And then people like myself who just sort of did what we had to do and didn't know anything more. And the people who really understood the software, who knew it really well, were doing the more interesting work. They weren't working, doing silly manual stuff late at night because they knew how to do it with formulas. And so it was like a turning point because I resolved that day that, right, I'm going to start learning more about how this program works. And as I did that, it sort of started to scratch that technical itch for me. And so I could be sitting at my desk, teaching myself, learning how to code VBA. But because I was in a spreadsheet with some numbers that looked like work stuff, it was, I was doing work. I never got very good at VBA, but I sort of progressed through the formulas to dashboards to VBA, and because it was all useful for my work. It was, it was relevant. I was able to build some stuff, some little tools that helped at work. So this was back in 2010 to 2013 sort of time zone.
Yep.
And actually, I was going to show you one thing here on my screen, if I can share my screen.
Yeah. I set it up so you can share.
Okay, great. So here we go. Cool. So you can see that. Can you see this? So it's a bit blurry, I'm afraid, because I couldn't find a great picture. But can you see this
Totally.
sort of block? It almost looks a little bit like JSON or something, but it's not. But it's a Swift message.
Yep.
Which is this Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications. It's basically how banks transfer money internationally. So if I wanted to send my brother $100 in Australia, my bank here in America sends a special message to the Australian bank, takes the money out of my account, debits it to his account, and sends a receipt message back.
Yep.
Anyway, so I spent basically 3 years working with these messages in Excel and SQL because of I was an accountant, but the investigation works we were doing at the time was all connected to big clients using these Swift messages to send to do business. And so our job as the accountants was to just make heads or tails of these hundreds of thousands of messages for the lawyers that we were working with. And so we would be given just a big text file with like 100,000 of these messages in this format, just as text, though, as a plain text file. And our workflow was to just dump that into Excel. And actually, before I joined, so going back even like 10 years ago, the way they used to do these investigations was they would print them all out.
Oh my God.
In a big folder, and then the lawyers would look through them and like highlight them and mark them up and stuff of sort of, this was a problematic transaction that we need to investigate. And so when I got there and the team was moving to doing this all in Excel, we would dump them in Excel, and then we wrote a whole bunch of formulas and little VBA snippets to parse all of these.
Oh my God.
Split, so you'd have all of these. You can see that little like.
I'm sitting here going, "Oh my God!" Like you could just parse this with JavaScript. Like
yeah. Well, it's the same thing. I mean, it was a big load of left, mid, and right formulas. It was awesome. Yeah. I mean, back in 2010, I was like, "This is amazing. We're building these cool formulas," and we would just dump 100,000 rows in the spreadsheet, click the formulas, and they would just go bam, and split it all out for us. So, for example, there's one field here that's say 32A. That has a date. You can just make out a date, maybe a currency and an amount. So this was like one of the key fields because we'd be able to date the transaction and know what the amount was and things. So you can sort of search for 32A as a search term and go and split out the data on that search term. So we spent a lot of time doing this with in big projects for a couple of years, and that really was got me into thinking about this automation process and the power of spreadsheets, and so that was really cool actually. Let me
so that's pretty interesting because both you and David got started, and I'm talking about David Kravitz. You both got started in finance.
Yeah, I think finance is interesting because they have a lot of data, they have interesting problems to solve, but they're still 10 years behind where sort of at least where the research organizations using Python and R and or digital agencies and stuff. So it's sort of easier, if you like, to get into that technical stuff more quickly because they're using Excel. So if you can do formulas, you can get straight away involved in the cutting edge.
Is it because they're anchored to technology, like they're anchored to Bloomberg machines and they're anchored to
there's certainly
legacy?
There's definitely a component, a legacy component where it's all set up and working with these old school things. There's also this huge risk aversion that they don't want to sort of move to new tools. They're worried about that from the security side of things, which obviously is a totally valid concern. And then also people just don't have the skills to know how to do that stuff.
Let's talk about quitting your job and moving on to what was next.
Yeah, sure. So 2013, 2014, I I didn't really ever enjoy accounting. It was never a passion for me. But I enjoyed all of this technical stuff, like that the stuff I was just telling you about. I learned to do SQL on the job as well when we moved to SQL, and a bit of Tableau. So I enjoyed all that technical side of things and the data analysis side of things. And 2014, I was talking over with my wife, and I just said, I'm not happy doing this job. And she was like, well, just leave and figure something out. Because she'd worked for herself for a while, and she was totally on board with the whole, you can create your own career now in this day and age, and there's the tools out there, and there's the creator economy, et cetera, et cetera. So it was, the timing's there. So she said, just go for it. And so, yeah, I did. I mean, it's a scary thing to hand in your notice, actually. But
been there.
I'd done it before, and I did it again, and didn't really have a plan, much of a plan at all. I did start a blog, because that's the the advice for every job hunter: go start a blog. Which obviously has worked out quite well. But I actually, I thought when I started that I was just going to do a newsletter, create a newsletter for the forensic accounting industry. That was business plan number one.
Yep.
And so I was doing a few calls with some people in the industry. I'd put together a few sort of draft emails that were going to be this weekly newsletter of industry news, etc., that would then people would pay for. So it's kind of like, the paid newsletters are all the rage these days. And so I think it could have worked, but about a month into it, I woke up and I just said to my wife, I said, I can't do this. I don't want to do anything to do with accounting anymore. And here I am trying to create a business about accounting. This isn't going to work. So I said, what I really want to do is something technical. What my heart was telling me is I wanted to be a developer.
Yeah.
So plan 2 was to become a web developer. And so I started I said, right, I need 6 months, and didn't really put an exact time frame on it, but I said for the near term, I need to just be coding every day and learning to code, to do web development. And I did a few courses, like part-time and online courses, just to help with that. And then through this time, I was still writing this blog, and one of the topics was Google Sheets, because I'd been helping my wife use G Suite, and so I'd been helping her because it's pretty similar to Excel, so my skills just kind of transferred right across.
Can I have you pause there for a second?
Yeah.
So this is one of the more fascinating things that I think anyone who builds content can take away from this conversation. Forget about automation. So finding your direction. Take us through that, because that was like a light bulb moment for me when we talked last time, of like finding your place in the world and finding your niche that you want to talk about. This was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I had no, when I started like this blog, it was going to be a technical portfolio. There was no goal that this is going to be a livelihood or whatever. And so I wrote about literally everything I was teaching myself. So I wrote some SQL posts that were based on sort of things I knew from my old work. I did some Excel posts, a couple of Google Sheet posts, like I mentioned, some Tableau, Ruby on Rails. I was learning through this course. I started writing some posts about unit testing and Ruby on Rails, a little bit of everything. And so it really was just this idea of let's throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, because I didn't have that goal at that particular time.
Yeah.
So year one, if I pick 2015 late 2014 to late 2015 as year one, blogging about everything, trying to be a web developer, applying to jobs as a web developer, but getting zero response, unsurprisingly. Hey, here's a washed up accountant. Let's hire him as a web developer. So it didn't go anywhere, but that was, that's okay. What did go somewhere is the Google Sheet posts picked up a little bit of traffic in search.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing there on the internet 5 years ago about Google Sheets, really.
Yeah.
And it was a post I'd written about building a dashboard. And some guy ran a small business, a real estate business. He had 10 agents, and he wanted to track, the calls and the closing deals and the meets they did with sort of on a weekly basis. And he said, could you build me a Google Sheets dashboard that does that for me? So that was my first client request, right around the time when I was thinking I need to go and apply back to get an accounting job again because this is not really working. So yeah, year one was everything, and right sort of towards the end of year one, or second half of year one rather, I got this trickle of client requests coming through, and then I also got the opportunity to go and teach data analysis with the company General Assembly that I'd done the web development course with, because they had this new course coming in about data analysis that was Excel, SQL, and Tableau. So I just wrote to them and said, hey, they're the skills I've been working with for the last 5 years. You're looking for instructors, and so I ended up teaching 3 courses there for them of that part-time course, which was really fun. So that was sort of 2015 and 2016. And then 2016, I'd narrowed down now to saying, okay, I want to focus on data analysis. So I'm going to do Google Sheets still, I'm going to do Excel, I'm going to do SQL, I'm going to do Tableau, and I'm going to drop Ruby on Rails because I didn't really know what I was talking about. And focus on those ones. And then that was sort of aligned with this teaching I was doing with General Assembly, and it was aligned with the kind of clients I was trying to attract. And then probably it was another year before I moved exclusively, then just sort of niche down onto Google Workspace and Google Sheets. And that's when things really started to pick up again.
Yeah, I found that last, I mean, the whole story is amazing. The last part was killer when you shared it, because it was like, I'm building all this content, I'm getting a lot of traction in Sheets, I'm going to focus on Sheets, right? Wasn't there a piece of that?
Yeah, and there was I had this blocker for a long time that, part of a big motivation for doing all of this was, look, the reason I left my accounting job was because I wanted to be intellectually challenged. I wanted to be a developer because I really love that technical stuff. And I always had this concern always that, hey, is Google Sheets like, going to pigeonhole me into this little spreadsheet thing that and I'll be sort of, won't feel like I can develop as and grow in things, and just being too much in a niche. But then, once I found AppScript, it took me down that whole rabbit hole there. I was like, oh, this is great. More than enough here. And obviously Google Sheets has just evolved tremendously, in the last 5 years in terms of its capabilities, and continues to do so. And so it's as much of as big and whatever as, I mean, there's things Excel does better still, but it's still it's a huge, big, complex program now that there's more than enough there to work with.
Well, I know that for both Jordan and I, your courses have taken our Sheets game and our critical thinking game to the next level. There's something about the way that you talk through teaching. You're just like calm, approachable is the wrong word, but like your energy is amazing, and it's so easy to just work with you, and the pacing is just right. There's just something of like super, you just like have the exact right temperament for people to take chunks of information and remember it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the hardest thing about teaching is how do I distill a concept into just the right size chunks so that the data is going in and the person retains it and they use it in their everyday workflow. Like, my favorite course was what's the course title? Automating with AppScript?
Yeah, automation with AppScript. Yeah.
And the way you've rolled that out is really interesting, because you'll like have it be live and available, and then it's hidden, and then it's live and it's hidden. And when I took it, when I was done, I was like, holy shit, I got to tell everybody about this. And I went to go look for the link, and the link was missing from the course list. And I was like, like, I want to share this.
Yeah.
But
actually, I've moved that now to the evergreen
good
model. So it is available now. But well, thank you.
So do you do that? Like, you'll launch and then you'll see what the feedback is from round one, do a lot of tweaking, and then eventually it gets to evergreen?
No, usually I create the course, I launch it with a special launch week, and then it's just available thereafter. I decided to do it a little bit differently with the app script on there, just to see kind of how that went, what the reception was, so I could then make tweaks and come back and launch it again.
Yeah.
And yeah, I did that, and then now it's available all the time now. Now it's a little more mature, and it's just being updated as we speak, actually.
Super cool.
Yeah.
So I want to look at code. I see we've got some. Well, I've got a bunch of time, but before we do that, one of my favorite questions to ask our guests is, how do you approach critical problem solving? Because I think
I wanted to talk actually. I think this ties in a little bit with when you were talking about the teaching before.
Yeah.
I actually think that my mum is a fantastic teacher.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I get a lot of that from. My dad's really into the technical stuff, so I get that from him, and then my mum's the teacher, so that gave me the blend. But I've had this mantra almost from the beginning, actually, to leave no stone unturned was like the phrase I have. So when I'm trying to explain something like a formula in Google Sheets or a little bit of app script, is I just always try and assume nothing and avoid too much technical jargon, and just sort of, even with the automation course, which is more of an intermediate course, it's still sort of, I won't assume too much. So I'll still, even to go through a more challenging little bit of code or something, I'll still say and the spreadsheet app doc blah 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 means we're going to go and do this, rather than just jump straight to the loop, just to give it also, just even the people who know exactly what it's doing, it's giving the context, it's setting the scene a little bit
and reinforcing the concept.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
how I take it in as a student. Yeah.
And I've also, one thing that's also changed over the last few years is to not worry about the videos being completely perfect. So I used to go through and edit out every single little tiny thing. Now, especially with the coding, if I write my little bit of code, I run, I go and look in the logs, and it doesn't show me what I'm expecting.
Yeah.
This means something else. We need to go fix this bit of code here. And I often leave them in now because I feel like that leads to some insight and a learning opportunity. So
totally. I agree.
That's definitely changed a little bit in my thinking. But the no stone unturned idea has just been like the bedrock of all of the work I've done in the blog posts as well. That's why they kind of they're quite long. It is a balance, because you can easily obviously go down a rabbit hole that's too deep and end up creating content that's not useful.
Yeah.
And I've definitely been guilty of that. But still, I think I try to always, not assume anything, and explain everything as thoroughly as I can. Then the other guiding principle I have, I think, is to document things as I go. So write everything down. I have process notes for my business. I sort of, as I'm working through problems, I'll often just have a Google Doc open that I just dump stuff into, like useful links I've been through, or little notes about what's happening. Because often then if I come to write a blog post or turn it into a video one day, that's really helpful then to have that all that information there. And then with the idea of the how to approach problems and the thinking, I think just breaking it down as into the smallest pieces possible, and then just saying, right, every day I want to just tick off one of these little pieces, so I know I've moved it forward one little step.
Totally.
And then not worrying too much about the big picture, because if I'm focusing on just the process of getting something done each day and moving forward one step each day, then suddenly when you do step back after a month, you're like, wow, I've actually made a ton of progress on this. So definitely just breaking it down, baby steps, documentation. I guess they're the ones.
That's perfect. So speaking of progress, and speaking of learning new technology, so you posted something about BigQuery recently.
Yeah.
And I instantly bought the official guide to BigQuery. And 5 or 6 pages in, I started to ask myself the question, did he buy the same book where they had like some example about bike sharing or bike something or other? And I was like, oh my God, is Ben really going to read that 800-page tome to like go deep on BigQuery? So how many pages in are you?
Yeah, good. I've done some chunks actually. I did the first few chapters.
Yeah.
And they weren't too bad actually, because that's a lot of standard SQL stuff.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I haven't made too much since we chatted actually. So we chatted, didn't we, know, at the end of last year.
Yeah.
And I was messing about with BigQuery and Data Studio and starting to sort of move my Google Sheets data pipeline, which I'm going to show you a little bit later actually,
cool,
into a more formalized BigQuery environment.
Yep.
So that still hasn't moved forward too much since we chatted.
Yeah.
But it's one of those projects, you know, where you kind of, when you get a little bit of time and the energy and the creativity, you'll have a little, you'll move forward a chunk, and then it'll sort of tailor off for a little while, and then but yeah, that book, I guess I'm a little old-fashioned still. I quite like to have books.
Yeah.
You know, I think it stems from when I grew up. So my dad ran software companies, founded and ran his own software company, and he always had an office full of books of like these really meaty Borland 123, Borland and Lotus 123 and Quattro Pro and all these old spreadsheet programs and all the inventory programs. And I used to go into the office and pull like the thickest one I could find off the shelf and turn like page 700 or something to some obscure line of code and ask my dad to tell me what it was all about. So I guess I still like, you know, I guess I'm trying to recreate that now for myself.
Okay, so this feels like a great transition point. What would you like to share with us? What kind of code do you want to show off or talk about?
Yeah, sure. So let me share my screen again.
Yep. Oh, yeah, you should be able to just do that.
Yeah, it looks good actually. Okay, so that was that one we talked about before. Yeah, well, let me start with this actually.
Ooh.
So this is, I'm just rearranging a few things here. There we go. So I can. So remember I said I'd worked with my wife, helping her with her business, on helping her with some Google Sheets stuff on her business when she, well, when I quit my job. And one of the things she does is run these digital sales once a year, where it's like a flash sale on a bundle of digital products from all these different creators in the writing space. And one thing I helped to do was build these dashboards like this one here in Google Sheets. So it would give us an indication. I think the blue was the sort of the first year we did it. The second year was the green one that did really well, and then the third year was this red one. It would compare your revenue and your profit goals. These are all made up numbers that I've put in for this sort of template here. And then all of the, you know, you'd be able to see where your sales came from and which affiliates converted for you as well. And the sale would run over 3 or 4 or even 5 days. So it was really helpful to have all of this information available, so you could kind of see what, you know, which affiliates are doing well and who hadn't started yet, so you could send them a message and remind them to try and do it and things like that. And so this is definitely this is the sort of final evolution of this, but this dashboard was one of the first big projects I did in Google Sheets. And the first 2 years, I didn't use any app script. It was all manual. And so once an hour, I would go to this website called eJunkie, which is like a shopping cart site my wife used. And I would just download the CSV of sales data up to that point, and then just dump it basically into the Google Sheet. And then, you know, the charts would all update. So once an hour it would update, but it required, you know, 10 minutes of my time every hour. During those 3 days. I didn't do it through the middle of the night. I stopped at about 11 p.m. or something. But it was, you know, that was pretty tedious and not very scalable or repeatable. And then in 2017, I was a bit more into the app script side of things by then. And I don't even know quite how I found out, but I somehow heard about webhooks, because eJunkie I'm not sure if that's still the case now. They didn't have an API, but they did have a way to use webhooks where you could just dump a URL in and it would ping you every time a transaction happened.
Yep.
And so, yeah, so this year, so what we did is set this up so that, and I'll show you the code in a minute, but published, created the code, published it as a webhook, dropped that URL into eJunkie, and then they could send through every one of these, and would be a sale. Obviously, I've redacted it all.
Yep.
And it was really, this is one of the earliest times actually when the automation was like this, like just magic moment when you're sitting there with a spreadsheet. My wife sent out the email to say that the sale's open and sales start trickling in. And then suddenly things are just popping up on this Google Sheet, like automatically. And you're like, holy shit, this is awesome. Like what black magic is this? So, and then because the data then feeds into this, I forget exactly, but it's got just pretty simple formulas to count and add up basically how many sales, where you're up to during the day, the 3-day window, how many sales you had up to that point.
Yep.
So that these charts would sort of climb up over time through the 3 days.
Yep.
And it was just really like such a cool project to see it happening live with my hands off. Like I hardly touched this thing for the 3 days. It just did its own thing. And we put it up on a big screen TV in the house actually, which was really pretty fun as well. So, and then let me show you the code though. So the code is, let's zoom in here.
Oh, wow.
It's like really simple. And
let's make David Sotomano jealous. Brand new IDE. He still doesn't have the new IDE.
I mean, no, I can't believe that.
It's awful.
Poor David. I hope it's worth the wait when he gets it.
I love it.
Yeah, I think it's cool actually.
I love the console logging as you run a function. It's so cool.
Yeah. It's a huge step forward. So anyway, so this is the whole code. So like 40 lines, and it just opens a spreadsheet. It's a do post, so it's just sitting there waiting and it's published as a webhook. When it gets pinged, it just passes the data, puts it into the little array, and then just appends that row to the sheet. But this took me a little while to figure out, and I had to get some help from some folks online to get this working, because it's kind of hard when you're sitting there and you can't really, like I didn't know at the time how I could really test it or anything. Mm-hmm. So I never knew whether things were working. So I had to like actually do a transaction in eJunkie and buy the product, to say, oh, it didn't work. Okay, let's change the code a little bit, go and buy the product again. Which is not ideal when you it takes you 10 times to get this right. But anyway, we got there. So this is one of that's one of the first projects. That was a lot of fun. So let me show you this one as well.
Can I ask you one quick question? Yeah, can you go back to that code?
Yep.
So now that we have our new IDE, and when I took your course, almost all your functions, you had the same kind of structure where you'll define var ss equals and then var sheet equals. Are you moving any global variables into maybe like global.gs, and it'll sit at the top of the script structure, or are you still going to keep everything inside functions?
It depends. So for bigger projects, like some of my own projects, actually, I've done things like that where I've moved the global variables and I'll have a helper function, helper.js.
Yep.
Just a bunch of utility functions.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the stuff in the course are, the functions are short enough. It's just kind of kept in one contained thing. And then also sometimes I'll do a code and then I'll do a code 2, which is very similar, but just a little bit more advanced.
Yep.
But I haven't written a var now for probably 2 or 3 months.
Right.
Because I'm just moved over to const and let. And so actually the introduction to AppScript course has got has all been updated now completely for the V8. And the automation course is about halfway through.
Yep.
So I uploaded a bunch of videos last week. I'm just re-recording it with the new editor and constant let. So that's all coming.
Do you know if they fixed the trigger problem with the new runtime?
Which one are you talking about?
So what I found when I built Postomatic was that I built it in V8, launched it. The triggers would not work with V8 reliably.
Really? Which like a specific trigger or
just a time-based trigger?
Really?
That was and that one issue made me go back to the old runtime. And so Postomatic, I had to build it in the old runtime, and it really made me frustrated.
Yeah,
as you can imagine. So that's something that just totally blew my mind that they hadn't fixed. I was wondering if the combination of new IDE plus time led them to fix that issue. But I was just
I don't know. I've been using the triggers quite a bit.
Yeah,
but for this courses and things, and it's pretty simple though. I've been using time triggers, but again, it's just pretty self-contained with, not this particular function obviously, but just with single functions or just a handful of functions, and haven't had any issues with them.
And it might be something where the added layer of it being an add-on.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I don't know. I was just curious.
Could be. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, Ben. I didn't mean to.
No, that's right. If you try and think about the complexity of rolling out a new IDE, it's like,
yeah, totally.
So I'm sure there's tons. They must have a giant bug list actually, but it's pretty good, better than what it was. So the next one I'll show you is the one we talked about actually when we last chatted. No, was this? This is like the little data pipeline I built for my own business.
Yeah.
Where once a day.
Yeah.
So the nice automation here is that, I want to look at my website data. I want to see, and really most importantly is my, I'm really interested in my email growth because that's the big driver of my business.
Yep.
So I have I have my website data, I have my email data, and the idea is to eventually build this to include my teachable data from, my students, what sort of the engagement levels there in those courses, and then also bring in sort of the financial data so I can have a single dashboard with all of my holistic view of the business. So I built this sheet, and it actually uses the Google Analytics add-on to go and fetch all the data from Google Analytics for my site. And actually, this is a good point, another point that's worth mentioning actually. I think one thing that's stopped me in the past sometimes doing automations is I felt like I had to build it almost from scratch for it to be real, or I have to use AppScript, or when I'm doing JavaScript I shouldn't be using any libraries or whatever, because it's got to be mine. I've got to build it and stuff, and then you end up just never doing it because it's like a gigantic project suddenly. Yeah. And so I'm much better now than I used to be at sort of saying, right, what's the quickest way to use the work that other people have done, because that's the point of
totally
how we all grow, that's how we get better, is to stand on the shoulders of the giants and just incrementally improve a little bit. And if I'm still stuck at day one trying to build everything myself from scratch, that's a noble idea, but it doesn't get you very far, to be honest. And so here's an example where at first when I started this, I thought I'll use the Google Analytics API, I'll connect to it with AppScript. And then I was like, well, why am I doing that when there's an add-on here? I could get it all set up in 15 minutes and move on to building other parts of this dashboard. And by the end of today, instead of still debugging some code for Google Analytics, which is not crucial to this project, I could have the entire thing finished and running. So, and Zapier is another example where in the past I've not built projects because I couldn't figure out, I would try the API for a while with AppScript and get stuck, or get it working in some form, but just not have the time to go through and build something properly, and then I'd just give up on the project. Whereas now I'd say, right, we'll just build it with Zapier. If that's the blocker, get it working, get it set up, and then if you want, you can go back and formally build other things, but sort of, these services exist so that they do that, build those pipes and a bit of the heavy lifting in the back end for you. So you can spend your time on the more high value stuff where you can, add your own angle to things. Anyway, that's a little tangent about using the Google Analytics add-on there to save some time.
Well, I love that. That's separating the challenges into different buckets. Like, what's the core challenge of the project or the core problem that I need to solve? And how do I get there as quickly as possible? And what packages or other pieces of software can I rely on? That's been the real breakthrough for me of using Node. I mean, it's like you go in NPM and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I have access to this API and this and this and this.
Yeah.
I can manipulate strings with this one. I can do stuff with arrays with this one. I can do stuff with dates with this one. And you're just like quickly productive as long as you're, inputting in the right format.
Yeah, exactly. It's, if you move quickly, you get projects up and running, then they take on a life of their own and they become something. Whereas if they are always stalling because, you never have time to build the API connection yourself, then that's, unless you're trying to learn to build API connections and that's your sole goal, then obviously that's a different thing. But,
Jordan, are you surprised at all that the Google Sheets query SQL is his most popular piece of content? Like,
No.
learning the query function, like, completely revolutionized the way that I look at data. Like, that was the function that took me to whole new places where I could just quickly create visualizations in Data Studio using the query function. Just such a cornerstone.
Yeah, it's amazing, actually. It really is. Yeah. And it's such a superpower that Google Sheets has.
Yeah, totally.
So yes, that's really cool. And then the other thing, so just to sort of wrap up this one a little bit, the one thing it does, that the piece of automation, if you like, in this one, we talked about the data coming in was from the analytics add-on.
Yep.
I did write some code to connect to the MailChimp add-on API, and then bring that data in from MailChimp, which is down sort of like way down here at the bottom.
Yep.
And then the last piece of it was, once a day, it turns this sheet here, just this front sheet, into a PDF and emails it to me. So that, every morning at 6 a.m. it's just sitting there in my inbox. And so every day I can just look at this as a PDF in my inbox. So I don't have to come and open a sheet or open Google Analytics or that kind of thing. And the code, again, for that is pretty straightforward. It's really interesting, actually. When I open this as well, I write my comments differently now. You sort of evolve your style of coding as well a little bit over the years, as you see how the real pros do it, and you absorb little bits from each of them. And but basically, this one pretty simple function here, just right down to the bottom there, just ends up with the Gmail app sending the email with the attachment, with the PDF attachment. And then has a little link here to click to go to the actual sheet as well if I ever want to. So again, this is something I've had running now probably since early 2017, and it's probably how many days is that? Like over 1,000 days. It's probably only failed once or twice, which is just amazing in my mind that AppScript is that reliable, and it's free and it's that powerful that I can just build this little tiny data pipeline that just keeps running with almost zero maintenance. And this is one of the ones from the course that gets taught in the course, actually.
Yeah. I want to look at this lesson again because I haven't been doing PDFs and emails, and that would be intriguing.
Yeah, it's really actually, I learned this from Digital Inspiration, the guy Amit from India, who's like an unbelievable font of knowledge on all of anything AppScript, and he, that's where I sort of first learned this years and years ago. And you just basically pick up the Google Sheet with the ID and then export it with this query parameter format being PDF. It's really actually not too, nothing too crazy.
Huh. Now, just the first VBA script,
Yep.
email me that image or Slack me that image or direct message me, because I'm going to put that on the video in a cleaner format so it's legible. Just
Sure.
sorry I got off track, but I
Yeah,
wanted to make sure I remembered to say it.
Yep. Yeah, I'll share that doc with you actually afterwards.
Okay.
Then.
Do you want to show us was it the MailChimp part that you wanted to show?
Yeah, sure. So this is the this is like my MailChimp dashboard, if you like, where it just pulls in my data and just sort of, I can just see how many signups I'm getting over a given period of time. Because sort of, it's this idea of this funnel where you have X number of visitors to the website, a certain number sign up, a certain number of those ones read the newsletters, a certain number of ones then read the newsletters actually all end up buying the courses. So it's really important to pour people coming in at the top of the funnel and to keep an eye on that. And yeah, the MailChimp API, this is probably one of the first ones I worked with. For two reasons. One is that I use MailChimp, every week to send my newsletter, so I have data and I know how to use MailChimp. For me as an individual, that's been one of the hardest things. Is sometimes, I want to go and connect to all these different APIs, but I don't have data I haven't used these platforms, so there's not much, I can necessarily do with them. But MailChimp was good because I had a ton of data. And then the API it's pretty user-friendly, to be honest.
God, your code looks different than I remember. It's really clean.
I love all the comments. I'm totally geeking out on that.
Yeah, I try to really just keep the code really clean. Like I have code where I'm working on it, it's pretty messy. Like there'll be big gaps and chunks of commented out bits of code and stuff. But then when it's something that I'm ready to share in a course, or even actually if it's not something I share in the course, but it's an important doc, I'll clean it up and try and keep things neat and tidy and delete all the bits that aren't there. Let's see if I can find where so you can see it gets a little bit more messy down here.
What I love about your course, one lesson that you share over and over again when you're teaching people how to automate, is you get data, you then grab the response and you paste it over your function, you comment it out so that you know exactly what you're dealing with in order to kind of structure how you're transforming it into whatever you're going to write in the sheet. Like that was a transformative thing for me. And I use that tactic or strategy all the time. And maybe that's just coding 101, but it changed the way that I work. And it made my life a lot easier, like especially in VS Code now. Like I'm working with more challenging stuff, and it just makes it like problem solving and the time to solve. It drastically reduces the amount of time. Same thing.
I think here's an example. Actually, I was just looking to see if I could see one where this object that comes back or whatever is this bit of JSON is. I just dropped it there so I can see all of the different key value pairs, and then I'm not having to go back and forth or so. Yeah, you'll always see. Usually I delete it actually, but you can see things like this where I'll get the actual JSON data, then I'll get the length of it, then I'll go and get a single item from it and pull something out of that item, and then usually just copy it all here, and then so normally I'd get to this point, I'd get the JSON data and I'd stop and do all of this bit here for a while, messing about with lots of different logger.logs or console.logs now, before I go to the next step where you're then trying to sort of, you put these things into variables and, pass the ones you need. So definitely that's kind of going back to the idea of those baby steps of, you just do it little incrementally, little bit by bit. The other thing I do always advocate as well is that, run your code really frequently, make a change, run it, see if it works. Because we're probably all guilty of this sometimes where we think, oh, I'm trying to do this loop over this array and then do something with these things, push them to another array and then put that somewhere else and call another function, and you'll just write the whole thing out, run it, and it doesn't work, and then you're like, oh man, which bit doesn't work? But if you do it, you write the loop and then you just console.log it and run it, and then you just check that works. Okay, that works. So then we'll do the next bit, which is to pass the data and then log them. Okay, that works. And then, it definitely, when you're learning anyway, it's easy, obviously, to do it in those little steps like that.
So can we go to a sheet? Like there's one I'm solving for a problem that I know I'm going to have to do this all the time. I've got a sheet with values in it. The values stop at row 12, right? So I want to filter by, I want to do a get data range to grab all the values in the sheet. I then want to filter those values based on some values in some of the rows. I then need to process them and then write them to the appropriate rows again. I thought that one of the methods that I was using was grabbing the data by get data range and then using like a filter move or a map move, and going to write that back in the sheet is a pain in the ass at that point, rather than just getting, like get range, get values. That gets all of the. Oh, Jordan, you gotta go. Okay, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Bye, Jordan.
Ben, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
All right, take care, guys.
I just want to make sure, just see where my calendar is. Where are we? 10 to 11. Okay, so I have plenty of time. It doesn't mean I want to keep you for 2 hours. Don't worry. But how do you like to handle like is blank? How do you like to handle is blank? And I don't mean using the standard app script formula, because that doesn't work when we're doing get data range. But how do you like to check if it's blank? And how do you also like to handle undefined when you're doing app script and values and sheets? Like that's one of those things where I constantly am like, oh, am I doing this right? I want to have a framework for thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the filter function.
Yeah.
Taking your array.filter and then just seeing, then checking if, you'll take the row, look at the column you want to look at, and then check if that's blank.
Yep.
That's how I would reduce it down. And then your other point is all about one of the things is knowing which row to paste it back to.
Which is relevant if you're doing the filter or the map.
Yeah, because you don't want to, if you've got 12 rows, it's no problem. You can just copy all 12 rows, loop over them all and do whatever you want to do and paste it back as a block.
Yep.
But if you've got 100,000 rows or something, you might want to do that filter and to look at your 5 rows you want to look at and then paste them back and not be pasting and working with all 100,000 rows. I mean, one thing I've done before is to just add, when you loop over it, just add the row number to the array.
Yeah.
And then when you filter it down, you've got three rows left, numbers 7, 9, and 15 or something. You can then just paste them back to those relevant rows of your on your sheet.
Okay. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, I want to do this as intelligently as possible. So are you just checking for empty strings oftentimes in that situation when you're inside a filter?
Yeah, if you're wanting to see if the cell's blank.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd check for the empty string. I guess you can have cells that look empty, but may have, a space in, or they might have some other custom number formatting that hides the, let me show you this actually. If, so let's say we have some numbers.
Yep.
Make them bigger. And then this is a sheet you're gonna, this is like a April Fool's prank you might play on somebody.
Yep.
You can set the custom number format just to 3 semicolons or semicolons.
Yeah.
and then it just hides everything in the sheet. If I type hello, it just disappears.
So you share the document with them.
Yeah, so you say, oh, here's the spreadsheet. You just add some stuff to column 2, and they're like, 44. What the hell was this going? Hello.
Oh my God, you just gave me the best prank ever. Oh my God. So I hope my boss Nico doesn't watch this. So we have this document that we call resources and time. It is like the document that we use to allocate all of our agency resources for the month across all of our clients and all of our projects. So if I was to do that in April, when they go in to do the resources and time, and they're going to think that all the formulas are broken.
Well, yeah, don't blame me if it goes. Maybe, yeah, and then I guess you can. If I can, yeah, you could just undo to get the number formatting off, because you don't want to. Yeah, you don't want to mess everything up, but it's a good one.
Oh, that's awesome.
So there you go. Anyway, that was a little side. We got sidetracked there.
Yeah, sorry. Typical Noah.
Yeah. What else? Was there a question? Were we answering a question?
Well, it was like, how do we deal with checking for, I guess, what is your standard move for checking if cells are empty? Just checking with triple equals and an empty string?
Yeah.
Okay. That works.
And honestly, as well, I pretty much still, I'm always Googling.
Yeah, so we're aligned. Okay.
And having a look on Stack Overflow and just seeing if there's any other things I should be thinking of.
And
also, I don't know, sometimes there are certain things that stick and you can just write it out. Other things, even though you've done it 1,000 times, you still have to just go and Google it to see what the notation is or the syntax is. It sometimes, it doesn't stick. But there we go.
You're going to laugh at me. So over the Christmas break, I had 10 days off, and I've been thinking a ton about the Google Trends API.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what kind of data I was going to get back. And so I decided to build an API endpoint as a cloud function. I then decided to use AppScript and Sheets as my interface to manage the data and get the data and read it to a sheet, and then use the sheet for Data Studio as like a data source. And what I think you would be stoked on is that the function inside AppScript, I got it to return all whatever 5 or 6 methods that Google Trends lets you have access to. I got to manage everything with 150 lines of code.
Nice.
And I was like, yes, because it's all clean and good looking and it's formatted nicely and it all is logical and commonsensical and super fun.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's sort of, they have this thing, this code smell test, right? But it's almost like you do know when your code that you've written is, good code almost. Not that any of my code is particularly good, but you can tell when you've done something in a real hacky way.
Yeah.
Or when you've done something with the right methods, and it just always looks a little cleaner and neater and satisfying.
So I know your time's crazy valuable. Can you share with us your biggest F up, your biggest mistake, or your biggest thing that you were building that just broke horribly and had something going really, really wrong?
Let me think for a moment.
I'll give you an example while you're thinking. So Jordan was building a natural language tool for one of his clients. It would take text from his website and then parse it for machine learning stuff to get entity information around content on the site. He built it with Big Watson, and by accident, as it was processing data, it did a denial of service attack on his client's website and took his client's site down. So that would be a great example of his biggest
pretty good,
fuck up. And it was clear to him that was easily the biggest,
Yeah, actually, that has reminded me of the biggest F up that I did was actually when I was working as an accountant.
Yeah.
I had one of these gigantic Excel files.
Yeah.
With all of those messages we talked about, those transactions in there.
Yeah.
And it was I'd hidden the first 5 columns.
Yeah.
Which had like the ID number, which was like the one key number that allowed all the rows to know which row it was to relate to other spreadsheets and things, but it was hidden. And then I took the filters off at one point, put the filters back on, reordered and resorted all the data a whole bunch of times. And then sort of a day passed. And then at some point I realized I was like, I need to bring some of the data across. And I went and unhid those columns. I was like, oh crap. They were not included in any of the filters.
Oh no.
So now the ID column is sitting there going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And my 100,000 rows are in just a totally different order.
Oh my God.
And I was just like, do you ever get like really intense heat in your head?
Yeah.
Like your head's about to explode.
Yeah.
So and I was like, literally sort of like, oh my God, I'm in big trouble here. This is the master sheet. I mean, if we had backups from, we didn't have any sort of like formal processing, but we had older versions of the sheets. But things move so quickly and decisions are made that you really, it can cause a lot of trouble if you're sort of, having to figure out what works and what isn't working anymore. Anyway, so after 10 minutes of literally just sitting at the screen, kind of quietly screaming inside my head and panicking, I was like, right, I got to figure out what we can do here. And what I did was just basically create a new column where I concatenated. I realized if I took like these 5 other columns, joined them all together, it would make this unique identifier.
Yeah.
So I joined these 5 columns to make this like super long unique identifier that had like a name and an email or whatever it was. And then I went to my, the version from like a week or 2 ago, created that same column with that unique, gigantic identifier.
Yeah.
Then I could do the lookup and bring the ID back across from the old one.
Yeah.
And now it's in the correct order. But still, the whole thing was like I'm just, a bit like Macbeth. You've killed 5. You've got to just keep going. I was like, I don't know if this is, I hope this is right. And then an hour later, my boss asked me for the latest version of the sheet with the right numbers. Send it over. I'm like, this is either the end of me or I've dodged a bullet.
So I don't have a biggest coding mistake. I've got lots and lots of medium-sized ones. Nothing where all client data was lost. I don't have that type of story. And there's no reason why. It's really just luck. But I did make a real mistake, like we were talking about BigQuery. I built this, I showed you the tool Ring My Bell, where bike shops, when stuff goes out of stock, the user can get added to a list where they request to be notified when that item's back in stock. I built it using BigQuery as a database, not remembering that you could only update a certain table 1,500 times in a day. And, that whole project started with, oh, this will be easy. I'll just use AppScript. 50, 60 lines of code. And it did maybe it was 100 lines of code, but I had all the functions set in 100 lines of code. And then it was like, well, what if there's like a couple hundred items on the sheet? Well, there goes my 6-minute runtime. Yeah. Right. So then it turns into like, oh, I got to build it with BigQuery. Built the whole thing. It works great. And I was like, oh, I can only update the sheet 1,500 times in a day. There's already 1,000 items in the pipeline. That means that there's going to be 1,000 status updates before any of my clients make any changes that they want to push to the database. I was like, fuck me. Like having to go from BigQuery to pull in. That's why I learned Firestore. Yeah. That's why I was all like, oh, Ben, you got to learn this. You're going to love that code. It is so easy to update that database. Not database, NoSQL database, whatever. You're going to be really stoked on it because it's not complex at all with your background in SQL. Also, like pushing data up to BigQuery, you have to have it in JSON, CSV format. CSV format's a pain in the ass to like get data so that it's proper valid CSV. When you push stuff to Firestore, it's just, you basically manipulate the data, turn it into an array of objects, and then just save the objects, and it's easy peasy. I mean, it's like the easiest thing ever. This has been amazing.
Yeah, I likewise, definitely.
I got to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what are you really stoked to challenge? What problem domains are you really stoked to tackle next?
Yeah, so let me give you an insight into the year. So the first thing is, and I'll show you the t-shirt here as well. It's SheetsCon.
Yeah.
This is the t-shirt from last year.
I didn't get to go last year. I signed up, but I didn't get to do it live.
Yeah. So that's going to happen in end of March.
Cool.
And that's a 2-day online Google Sheets extravaganza. And we'll have day 1 will definitely be all about Sheets. Day 2 will definitely include quite a bit of AppScript stuff. So that will be really fun. That's one of the big projects, obviously, for the first half of the year. And then the next thing I'm working on is creating a live version of my courses, where we'll meet. So it'll run for like 5 weeks. We'll meet twice a week. There'll be an office hours. There'll be a community, and it'll be this flipped classroom model where I'll sort of leave videos and problems to do on your own time before the next week. And then the 2 Zoom sessions, the 90-minute Zoom sessions, can be purely for discussion and learning and problem solving. So I'm super excited about that, actually.
Don't invite anyone like me into that course, because they would totally blow up that 90-minute flow. Let me ask you a question.
No, we need about, it's always good to have, you need some people who have lots to say. Balance out the people who don't, are quieter. But no, so that'll be good. So that will involve mostly Sheets, but also obviously some AppScript stuff, focusing kind of on the data analysis angle. And we'll be launching that one in probably April.
That sounds really, really interesting, because it's a totally different way of working for you, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's a little bit going full circle. So when in 2015, I taught those data analysis courses part-time. It was 2 evenings a week. It was in person, but this is going to be like a online version of that almost.
Yeah.
And then
I think that's super cool too, because when I took your course, I was like, man, I just want to talk to this guy and ask him a question about A, B, or C. And I think that personal connection will make you stickier, and you'll get more conversions.
Cool. Yeah, I think it definitely, I think that if you look at online education, it's innovating and evolving all the time. And it's we had the MOOC phase, it's all the video courses, which is great, and that works, but it requires a lot of self-motivation. And I think a lot of people as well, what they're looking for is like a group, to have some peers to go through it together for asking the questions. They want FaceTime with this instructor and that accountability. And that's as much as the skills you get. That's like, a big part of it. So yeah, I'm excited about it. Actually. I think it'll be fun.
I would love to share my trends tool with you. I don't know what the best time or way to do that is, but I think it'll be a perfect little add-on. Like, I've built it as a proof of concept now, so that all the functionality to drive the add-ons in one tab. But I feel like it would be a really neat thing to share with a group of people to get feedback on, because I feel like it's an example of using AppScript in a creative way to talk to an API, to get data back, and then to email the results potentially to people.
Yeah.
It's just like, it reminds me of a lot of the things that you teach. And it's almost like how to go from taking my course to producing production, not necessarily production quality code, but code that's good enough for an add-on. Is with some self-motivation and self-discipline, you can get there relatively quickly.
Yeah, well, you're living proof of that.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing is it's almost like it builds you up because it's like, it's not take my course and you'll be a hero. It's more like take my course, have discipline, and learn to solve problems. And this is what's capable. This is your pain. This is what the outcome looks like.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not alone, right? I mean, you must
Yeah.
get people bugging you like I bugged you all the time of how they were able to take their
Yeah, no,
skills to the
there's
next
been a
level.
lot of cool stories actually. It's nice. It's one of the best parts of the job.
I would assume.
Seeing people and what they build, and that always one of the most interesting as well, because everybody approaches problems in a different way and ends up, solving it in a different way, and it's always fascinating.
Oh yeah, totally. Like when I built the Post-O-Matic add-on, I started working with other SEOs where I would get on a Zoom call and I'd watch them work with the tool that I built. And then the ways that they leveraged it were super different than what I thought they would do.
Yep.
And then I was like, oh, I'll just create that feature. Oh, I'll just create that feature. One person took Post-O-Matic, which allows you to post to Google My Business posts. And she then integrated Zapier with it with her project management toolkit. So she would do work in her project management toolkit, click task complete. That would trigger a zap, which would push the output of that task into the Google Sheet, which would then automatically publish that Google My Business post. And I was like, oh, shit. She automated on my automation. I was like, that's sick. Barb Davids, this is for you. And so anyway, really
Very
great.
cool. That's
Great.
awesome.
So Ben, as you re-engage with BigQuery, Firestore, whatever, I want to be a resource for you because you've given me so much. And you basically, you and David, what you guys have given to the community, it was captured really well by a guy named Dan Smullen that I had a hangout with this morning. He's like, I don't think that Ben knows the impact that he's had on the SEO and digital marketing community. Like, I don't know what the percentage is, but I would say that most digital marketers have learned to do just daily work skills by watching courses from him and reading their blog posts. I mean, do you have insight into like how many lives you've changed for the better? Like, you're all humble and stuff, but like,
Yeah,
do
I'm
you?
too humble to answer. I don't know. I mean, I know I get, like I said, one of the most rewarding parts of the job actually is when I'll get an email from somebody who says thank you and that it's really helped them at work or something. It's just nice to know that it is useful. It's because at the end of the day, being a teacher is just about helping people, and I like doing that.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, this has been an amazing episode of Agency Automators. Anytime you want to come back on and talk about anything, ping me. I mean, we'll do an episode a month. Kidding. But I do want to have you back on. And is there any parting words, guiding principles you want to share as a takeaway as we head off into the sunset?
Well, I think maybe a good one that we can both relate to is that you can do this, whoever you are out there, and it's a struggle for everybody.
Yeah.
This coding game or this building software. But I've always found that if you just persist, ask for help at the right times, but keep going, then the problems are solvable. Even if you end up figuring out a better way to do it and you solve a different problem, you can usually get yourself to where you want to get to if you're stubborn enough. And so, I guess my biggest piece of advice would be to just keep going and believe in yourself, and you can do it. Definitely. I feel like I'm proof of that because I'm definitely not like some kind of super coder brain box or anything like that. So
I totally agree. It's like having a high tolerance for pain. That's been my superhero.
Never giving up,
Yeah.
just refusing to give up and say, I can solve this, and I'll keep Googling until, or asking the right questions on Stack Overflow, or asking a mentor, that's even better.
Yeah.
Until you get that.
That's been my thing too. I've been so lucky to have mentors. Who do you have as a mentor?
So early on, as I mentioned, I did that web development course.
Yeah.
And the instructor was actually around my age and a really great guy. And I just got to know him over the 10 weeks. And he's like a senior software engineer at a company. And so he was like a mentor early on, that first year or so. And we're good friends now. We've been
Mhm.
away we've been away, like our respective families together to hang out and stuff like that. And he's just a good friend. And so he was really helpful early on, actually, as a mentor. And then I feel like, I learned so much from the GDE community as well. They're all super smart people. It's like a real honor to be part of that. And then I'm always learning. I feel like, I don't necessarily have a strict mentor as if there was somebody up above who's sort of put their arm over me or wing over me. But I learn a ton from just talking to a lot of different people. People who have taken my courses and got stuck and email me, how do I do this? Or I couldn't understand you here. And then, I learned a lot from doing that. I learned a lot from just talking with customers and then obviously find folks like yourself as well. So,
I've got a whole host of shoulders that I've been lucky to stand on. David Sotomano's been amazing. You've been amazing. David Crevitt has been amazing. John Murch, who's a Node guy. Dale McGeorge, he's the founder of Jepto. That guy has changed the way that I think about software entirely in terms of like how to architect in the serverless environment. Like that guy has just totally taken the way I think to a whole new level. And a whole series of people like that. I feel like I've got a lot of data visualization people too, who've changed the way that I think. Whether David Krevitz started that for me with Data Studio, and then also Lee Holt has been really great. Helpful Lee on Twitter, she's pretty amazing. Hannah Rampton, I don't know if you've watched what she's doing with Data Studio reports. That woman can visualize the hell out of anything. There's so many amazing people who just been willing to share themselves. And that's, your wife was saying something like, hey, I'm re-engaging with Twitter after all this time. And I was like thinking, she said something like, oh, I haven't been on Twitter since 2010. Right. So I'm thinking that she's going to have like 500 followers, 700 followers, whatever. I go to her profile. It's like 13,000 followers. I'm like, how the hell did you do that in the first 2 or 3 years of Twitter? Like, just blown
she had a
away.
course, actually. She had a Twitter course back in 2010. So she was, that was one of the things she did. So yeah, I mean, let me give a final shout out actually to my wife, because she's really been enormously helpful beyond what I can really express in words. But first of all, just having a supportive partner who believes in you when you go and quit your job. And then second of all, because she's been through all of this herself, she quit her own job, ran a content marketing agency, has run a content business and information websites, worked at a startup, the whole 9 yards. So she knows a ton about marketing, about email marketing, about PR, all this kind of stuff. So she's been a tremendous ally through this for me.
Awesome. So, okay. I think we're good. This was amazing. I don't think I have to edit a damn thing except for throwing that VB script. Like, that was just amazing. Ben, thank you.
Thank you very much for having me on. It was a pleasure.
So great. For everybody who's out there in Agency Automator land, thanks for joining us for this special edition. Keep automating, keep pushing, keep working. Our Slack community has been really growing like crazy. I don't remember, Ben, if you've joined.
No, I should join.
Oh, you did? Okay, cool.
I haven't. I will join. I should.
Okay. I think it's been picking up a lot, both in terms of engagement, and something we're starting to work on is building focus groups around problem domains. Like, there are things called Slack channels. It's like, oh, I want to talk about AppScript or whatever, but we're starting to like get into little mini groups to try and solve specific problems that we can't solve by ourselves. And I found that like pattern of ideating with other people, where I might be technical and someone might be able to think more high level from a content perspective, has helped the velocity of problem solving. And so I'm like super excited about that. And I don't know what else I want to chat about. I guess that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
All right. Cheers now.